You are watching Xirtus.
Things we're going to talk about ergot and psychedelics is that in the 15th century, and I have a couple of videos that have mentioned this before, but maybe not as clearly as this, or now it's going to be in the middle of this. Anyway, the dancing plague, the dancing plague, the dancing plague. Strasbourg, 15, what, 18, 12, somewhere, a little, I think it's 1518. It's right at 1523, 24. It's right after Gutenberg's kind of getting a little out. There's a little bit of copying going on, post-Arabic copying, and the Reformation isn't quite hit yet. And so you've got a bunch of people getting rotted grains, which has happened recently enough in the 50s and 70s. There's been major ergot breakouts across India and in the world. And, the CIA has been associated with ergot poisoning grains in France and creating LSD experiments on people that were really similar to this. Because in the 50s, right, they have these villages that are freaking out on acid. Well, ergot hit this village. They all ate the grain, starting with the rich, of course, because they had the most grain. Poor people being like, what's going on? Then you've got these sequestered ministry of priests that are eating the grain, and they're all going crazy. They send off some priests. By the time the priests come back to Strasbourg with some, more priests to see what's going on, the priest sheriffs looking over the thing, see the all these people on acid, essentially on ergot, that are burning, because it's not exactly the same as LSD. You've got this burning sensation and all this horrible stuff happening to you, and it'll cause you to just, it feels like needles and grass, and you're becoming one with like pain and pleasure. It's like very Catholic, psychedelic, medieval LSD trip. It's very beautiful to think about. It's very Ergmar Bergman, but they were freaked out and they burned it down.
Oh yeah. And like that aspect that you were talking about, like there doesn't seem to be much like open literature on like what exactly the psychedelic experience is like for ergot. Well, it's I think disclaimer: no one should ever try this ever
Oh yeah,
because
because it
like
can kill you. It
yeah,
can kill you, and
yeah,
it's got physical pain. They've called the descriptions of it have been out there though. So St. Anthony's fire,
yeah.
um, they have some names of it, and so you just look at some Salvador Dali paintings, and there's even other paintings of, St. Anthony walking across the desert, poisoned by ergot, feeling all of these demons whipping him. Right, that's basically he's got this crazy 9 demons are just flying around him, and their genitals are all in his face in every direction. Right, and he just had to get through that because he was a Manichaean.
Yeah, it sounds wild, but like I almost wonder if there's like some sort of like you could almost call it like a black trip because like well ergot can lead to like literally what's the word for losing your limbs? Whatever.
Boo.
Yeah.
Cat.
Like cattle lose their limbs all the time and like when you're having like these visions.
Amputation. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, like whatever the amputation is for just like having your limbs rot off.
Oh yeah.
um it sounds like
Gangrene, and this happened to people with research chemicals as well. There's an outbreak of dragonfly, bromo dragonfly, that killed a bunch of people in Denmark and Scandinavia in 2012. I mean, there's been a number of circumstances where they've reverse engineered NBOMs that have been dangerous based on ergot that can cause hypertension and all kinds of things. Ergot can cause hypertension that can actually cause gangrene, and you can, lose limbs. And it's the
or
crocodile of the 1500s. Yeah.
you just have a heart attack and die.
One would hope. I mean, it's at
Yeah.
that level. I mean, it's the thing. It's like, people in the old days associated psychedelics with suffering and pain more than we do today. Your
Yeah.
diet would have to change. You'd have to go through a ritual. It was part of a taboo or a fetish. Those words don't mean what they used to, right? Like a taboo is a ritual that a tribalman goes through. He goes through the taboo. And once he goes through the tribal taboo, he has to deal with a fetish. A fetish is this, magical amulet, like Indiana Jones is holding a fetish. That is what
Hmm.
that is. So,
Oh, nice.
so people kind of, yeah. Then I'm sure there's a great Kubrickian connection to that, but
Mm. So let's say theoretically, and here's what I don't really know. A lot of people modernly that take psychedelics, like we'll say LSD, DMT, and mushrooms, they might I think a lot of people have been, in some ways converted to believing in the spiritual world because they have had access to these substances. And so like,
but not
it's
always into God, which is interesting.
yeah, what like Sam Harris doesn't thought MDMA, I guess, led him to the belief that God doesn't exist. But I think it's there's just a semantic cutoff there. It's like a lot of your definitions are just important when you get to that level, I guess. Like how do you define God? And I think his definitions of God makes him think, whatever. Different subject, I guess. But let's say, for example, we take LSD, mushrooms, and DMT, and we treat those things as being access to the spiritual world. Um, I think it's either a possibility that those things can represent, that certain element of spirituality, to where you get a certain level of access to the spirits that are out there, and a certain level of pattern recognition to be able to understand those spirits. I theorize that Ergot, in the nature that it has been taken, it might be literally that natural guide to the black spiritual realm, like the dark spirits. And it sounds weird to say, yes, I think that's a possibility. And there's either that possibility, or there's the possibility that a lot of people, just now we have a culture of mass psychedelic usage to a certain degree. So a lot of people that use psychedelics, they'll definitely be open to using them. So I think if you gave a person that was unsuspecting to being on DMT or psilocybin, they might appear like an insane person, for half an hour or like however long the trip lasts. So like I think there's either the possibility that Ergot really is the demon trip, and you get access to like you might there might be a weird spiritual world out there to where you can actually make, apocalyptic sort of predictions off of it. Or if that isn't the possibility, the other possibility is that these people really were in such a different mindset, culturally speaking, that they were not anywhere near prepared to be introduced to the spiritual realm. So Ergot might be kind of a somewhat, I guess, normal psychedelic trip, but and slightly painful, but people were not prepared for it, and so that's what caused the bad trip. So I'm not sure exactly what to assume about that.
There's okay, so there's a couple of things there. One is like ergotism, going back, is one of the oldest, it might be the oldest kind of recorded toxicity, that they called it the daughter of blood in the ancient Assyria and the Assad Empire. And it was associated with seizures and epilepsy and all kinds of things. However, right there, it is a mold, and does a lot of the same things a lot of other molds do, which is it protects itself to an extent. It also proliferates itself, and so for it to grow and to take over, wheat fields, it's not always. It is variable. What level of ergot when you're consuming the ergot, if you're paying attention, and there are ways that they even used it to make rituals, which is has come up. The daughter of blood is an insinuation to one of the three goddesses. I forget if it's associated with later Hecate, though, when it becomes the three daughters' head. Because and this is also funny, because funny. Don't fatwa me when I say that Salman Rushdie's book refers to this idea that the Alawites had of like the 12th Imam, and like nephew of Muhammad, that they're the honorable Muhammad, that there that there is supposed to be this three-headed god that gave a prophecy, or was given in the prophecy by the devil to Muhammad. And Muhammad said, and this is so old of a writing that it seems it would be at a time it would be unusual to make up Muhammad making the mistake, that he thought it sounded like God, but he knew that it wasn't God, right? That's their whole thing. But for a while there, he preached the name, he was told to by Lucifer, the Satan, to Shaitan, to preach the names of the three goddesses of the ancient world, which would then be associated closer to Hecate. And that is another thing that comes up with Saint Anthony, right? And Saint Monica is his mother, and so the patron saint of Santa Monica, who is the patron saint of failed marriages and disappointing children, which explains both Santa Monica and also Los Angeles. But then also Saint Anthony, he had not believed in the singular God. He's believing in the dynamic wrestling of the two forces, which has permeated Christianity and our culture, the city of good and evil being that specific, because it isn't. That's not what Abraham says. And most of these things are all about, there's so many choices, and there's one correct choice in all of them, right? And it's not just right or wrong, like good or bad. That's a whole different kind of good and bad is different. Chaos and order, right? There's chaos, and then there's there's all of chaos, which is holding it all together. And then there's the order, which is this very limited concept within the chaos, right? That's held by and really chaos is order itself. And then order is chaos because it doesn't fit with
the universe is irrational and God is the rationality trying to interject itself.
Right. And that's a fair, fair.
I'm quite like semi-quoting Ballas again.
Yeah. That's a fair. We were just Philip K. Dicking around earlier. And I was watching some Man in High Castle, which I was reminded of the scene where they have a American informant who's attacked the Obergruppenführer, and he has to extract data. So they're using LSD from Ergot extraction to get this guy to tell them what's really going on. And he's like, how's this going to work? And they're like, the Obergruppenführer asks. And then the scientist is like, well, he's going to think he's one with everything. And so he won't have a reason to hold anything back because he'll just assume that you already know everything because you're all one anyway. So, I mean, there's something
bad assumption though.
Well, yeah, it didn't work out in that world, but
yeah,
at the same time, I think it does in a lot of cases work out for us.